Part 1, my kid told me he remembers his past life, and I checked his story. Hey Reddit. Throwaway for obvious reasons because I don't want this tied to my main, family and coworkers use that one, plus if this turns out to be nothing I don't want to look like the weirdo parent who thinks their kid is a psychic reincarnated ghost whisperer. So, my son, Eli, not his real name, just turned 5 last month. He's the kind of kid who notices everything, like, everything. He'll see an ant crawling across the sidewalk and tell you it's carrying a crumb, because its queen is hungry. Or he'll overhear a single line from a phone call and then ask follow-up questions about your work drama for a week. Basically, he's a sponge with opinions. I never thought much of it, kids have imaginations, right? But 2 weeks ago something happened that's been sitting in my stomach like a rock. We were in the kitchen. I was making grilled cheese, the only dinner he trusts, according to him, and he was at the table drawing. I asked him what he was drawing and he said, completely casually, "This is my house. My other house. From before." I asked, "Before what?" He shrugged, like I just asked the dumbest question in the world. "Before I died." I literally laughed out loud. I thought he was making up a ghost story because we'd read Room on the Broom the night before and he'd been stuck on the idea of witches taking people away. But then he looked at me, very seriously, and said, "I was a man. Not a kid. My name was Tom and I lived in a blue house with a red door. And one day I went to the store and a car hit me. Then I woke up and you were my mom." Now, I've read enough Reddit threads to know this is the kind of thing other parents hear sometimes, and usually it's chalked up to kids being sponges for random things they've overheard. But Eli hasn't been around anyone named Tom, and we've never talked about anyone getting hit by a car. Also, he doesn't just blurt random details, he talks in these memories. And there was something about the way he said it, quiet, almost annoyed that I didn't already know. I played along. I asked what the house looked like inside. He described it in way too much detail for a kid his age. A couch with scratchy green stuff on it. A table that had a little crack but my mom said it was okay because we put the flowers there. The kitchen smelled like eggs all the time. A dog named Rusty who liked to hide socks. The grilled cheese was burning, so I kind of laughed it off, but that night after he went to bed, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I even Googled past life memories kids, like some new age Facebook aunt. I found a bunch of articles, some said it's imagination, some said it's a sign of stress, some said it's, well, what it sounds like. The next day, he brought it up again, without me prompting him. This time, he told me Tom's real house was in Colby. I figured he meant cold or coal or something, but when I asked what Colby was, he said, "It's where the big white church is. You go down the street where the horses are, and it's there." I grew up in this state. I've never heard of a Colby near us. But I Googled it anyway, and, swear to God, there's a Colby about 3 hours from here. Tiny little town. Population under 3,000. Guess what it has right in the center? A huge white church. I told myself it's just coincidence. Colby, isn't that unusual a name? But still, my stomach did this weird flip. Over the next week, Eli kept dropping bits of Tom's life into conversation, like it was totally normal. Once in the grocery store he pointed to a bag of coffee beans and said, "My dad drank that in the morning and sometimes let me taste it but my mom got mad." Another time, while we were driving past a dog park, he said, "Rusty would have liked it here. He was old, but he could still run. He only bit Mr. Jacobson once." Who the hell is Mr. Jacobson? I asked, but he just said, "My neighbor," and moved on to talking about dinosaurs. I decided I wasn't going to feed into it too much, didn't want to encourage a false memory spiral or something, but I started quietly writing down everything he said. Dates, names, places, random details. I had a little notes app file going. Tom. Blue house/red door. Scratchy green couch. Crack in table/flowers on it. Kitchen smells like eggs. Rusty, dog, hide socks, bit Mr. Jacobson. Coffee beans, specific brand I noted. Colby Town, white church, horses. Hit by car going to the store. Here's where it gets weirder. Last Friday, I was tucking him in, and he grabbed my hand and whispered, like he was telling me a secret. "Don't let the red car get me again." I asked him what he meant, and his eyes got watery, genuinely watery, and he just shook his head and rolled over. That night, after he fell asleep, I was sitting in the dark in the living room with my laptop open to Google Maps, staring at Colby. I clicked through the little street view circles, just curious. And then I saw it. A house. Blue siding. Red door. Across the street? A small convenience store. And right on the corner, you guessed it, a crosswalk. I swear I stopped breathing for a second. I told myself I'd had a long week, that I was being an idiot, that of course somehow somewhere would fit the description. But here's the thing, the street was called Jacobs Road. Mr. Jacobson. Now I was actually scared. Like, full-body goosebumps scared. I'm not a paranormal person. I'm not religious. But there's a huge difference between your kid saying creepy stuff and finding evidence. I decided I'd call it a night, close the laptop, and just sleep on it. But I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his little voice saying, "Before I died," like it was nothing. Eventually, around 2 a.m., I made myself a plan. I was going to drive to Colby. Not with Eli, I'm not dragging him into my weird investigation. I'd just see the place, maybe talk to some locals, get it out of my system. I told my partner the next morning that I needed a little solo trip to clear my head. Didn't mention why. I left Saturday before sunrise with a travel mug of coffee and a notebook full of all the weird little details Eli had given me. The drive was uneventful, mostly farmland, occasional tiny gas stations. I rolled into Colby around 9 a.m., and it was exactly the kind of town you picture: one main street, a diner, a hardware store, the church towering over everything. I found Jacobs Road. I found the house. It looked older than in the street view pictures, like the paint had faded. The red door was chipped. But it was there. I parked a block away and just stared at it for a long time. And then I saw the neighbor. He was an older man, white hair, watering plants in his yard. And on the mailbox in front of him? It said Jacobson. That's where I'm going to leave this part, because what happened next is... well, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Part 2 coming soon. Part 2, my kid told me he remembers his past life, and I checked his story. Okay, so I left off parked a block away from a blue house with a red door, staring at a mailbox that said Jacobson. Let me just say, I felt insane. Like, part of me wanted to throw the car in reverse, drive 3 hours back home, and never think about this again. But there was another part, the part that had been up at 2 a.m. scrolling Street View like a conspiracy theorist, that needed to know more. I told myself I'd just walk by. Maybe take a couple of photos for my own sanity check. Then leave. I grabbed my notebook and phone, got out of the car, and started walking toward the house. It was one of those quiet Saturday mornings in small towns where you feel like everyone's watching you from behind lace curtains. The air smelled like grass clippings and something sweet, maybe pancakes from someone's kitchen. Mr. Jacobson, I'm assuming it was him, was still watering his plants. As I walked by, I nodded and said, "Morning." He gave me the friendly but suspicious small-town smile. "You lost?" "No, just visiting," I said, which I realize now makes me sound more suspicious. He looked me up and down, then back at his plants. "Not much to visit here unless you're looking for the church." "I saw that," I said. "Beautiful building." He nodded but didn't seem interested in small talk, so I kept going. I slowed down a little when I got in front of the blue house. The red door was even more worn than it looked on Google, paint peeling in long strips, a faint outline where an old wreath must have hung. The windows were clean, but the curtains were drawn tight. In my notebook, I scribbled, "Blue house, red door, cracked front step, white lace curtains. I was halfway through noting the chipped mailbox when I heard a voice behind me. "You looking for somebody?" I turned. A woman was standing on the porch of the house across the street. Maybe late 50s, gray hair pulled back, wearing a sweatshirt with "Colby Cardinals" on it. I tried to think of something casual. No, just, I used to know someone who lived here." She squinted, like she was trying to place me. "This house?" "Yeah." "A man named Tom?" She tilted her head. "Tom Reed?" I froze. I hadn't said a last name. I hadn't even said "Reed" out loud in my life. But there it was. I nodded, trying to act normal. "Yeah. Tom Reed." Her expression softened. "That's been a while." "Poor guy." She shook her head. "Hit by a car right there at the corner. Must be, 20 years now?" My stomach dropped. I asked, as casually as I could, was he married? "Oh yeah. Nice lady. Had a dog, too. What was his name?" "Rusty, that's it." She smiled like the memory was pleasant. "That dog was always stealing my husband's socks off the clothesline. If my legs hadn't been holding me up, I think I would have sat down right there on the curb." I thanked her, mumbled something about "just remembering," and kept walking. When I turned the corner, I ducked behind a tree and just sat. Hands shaking. My notes now had a full name to go with the story, Tom Reed. After a few deep breaths, I Googled Tom Reed Colby on my phone. The first result was a 20-year-old local newspaper archive. "Local man killed in crosswalk accident." The article was short. Victim, Thomas J. Reed, 36, resident of Colby. Struck by a red sedan while crossing from Jacobs Road to the convenience store. Survived by his wife, Margaret, no children mentioned. Known locally for helping at the church and walking his dog, Rusty. I read it 3 times. Now, here's where my brain split in two. One side was screaming, "This is it. This is proof. Eli is Tom Reed reincarnated. How else could he know all this?" The other side was whispering, "You could be connecting dots that don't exist. Kids hear things. Maybe someone mentioned Colby once and you forgot. Maybe he saw a picture somewhere. Except, there's no way he could have known Rusty. Or the eggs. Or that damn green couch." I decided I needed one more step before I drove home, talk to Margaret. The article had mentioned she still lived in Colby at the time. A quick search pulled up a Margaret Reed listed on a street not far from where I was sitting. I walked back to my car, drove past her house once, small, well-kept, with flower boxes in the windows, and then parked half a block away. I sat there for 10 minutes, trying to decide how to even begin that conversation. "Hi, my 5-year-old thinks he used to be your dead husband," felt not ideal. Eventually, I walked up to her door and knocked. A moment later, a woman opened it, late 50s, maybe 60, with kind eyes and that same small-town guardedness. "Yes?" she asked. "Hi, are you Margaret Reed?" She nodded slowly. "My name's OP name. This is going to sound strange, but I think I might have known your husband. A long time ago." She studied me for a long moment, then opened the door a little wider. "Well, come in then." Her house smelled faintly of coffee and lemon cleaner. She led me into the living room, and there it was. The green couch. Scratchy-looking fabric, floral throw pillows. Exactly as Eli had described. I almost forgot why I was there. We sat. I said I'd heard stories about Tom from someone and wanted to know more. She smiled at first, talking about how he used to fix things for neighbors, how he could never remember where he put his reading glasses. She told me about Rusty, who'd passed away years before. Then I asked, carefully, about the day of the accident. Her face tightened, but she told me, red sedan, rainy day, Tom was crossing to buy milk. The driver was a teenager, terrified, and Margaret had never blamed him. Every detail matched. Finally, I asked about something Eli had never mentioned. Did your kitchen smell like eggs? She laughed, a little startled. Oh, God. Probably. Tom made scrambled eggs almost every morning. Drove me crazy because the smell never went away. She shook her head, smiling. I can't believe you remembered that. I didn't tell her it wasn't me remembering. After maybe half an hour, I thanked her and left. Walking back to my car, I felt like my brain was buzzing, part adrenaline, part disbelief. I had a name, a place, verified facts. And a son who'd known them without ever being here. The drive home was a blur. I kept replaying Margaret's words in my head, the way she smiled when talking about Rusty. It was like I'd been given a key to a locked door in someone else's life, and my kid had handed it to me. That night, after Eli was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my notes spread out. I added everything I'd confirmed. Tom Reed, 36, Colby, blue house/red door. Green couch. Crack in table, I hadn't seen it, but Margaret mentioned Tom breaking the table leg once. Rusty. Red sedan accident at crosswalk by convenience store. Kitchen smelled like eggs. The only thing I hadn't confirmed yet? The "don't let the red car get me again" part. That was still sitting in my head like a warning. I was about to close my notebook when I heard soft footsteps. Eli was standing in the doorway, hair messy, rubbing his eyes. Mom, he said. Did you see my house? I froze. What do you mean, honey? My blue house. I dreamed you went there today. Part 3, my kid told me he remembers his past life, and I checked his story. When Eli stood there in his dinosaur pajamas saying, I dreamed you went there today, every hair on my arm stood up. I hadn't told him anything. Not about the trip, not about the house, not about the Jacobsons. And he said it like it was just a fact, not a question, not a guess. I tried to play dumb. Went where, buddy? My blue house. The one with the red door. But it was smaller than I remember. And Rusty wasn't there. He rubbed his eyes again. I think the new people don't like dogs. My throat went dry. What else did you see in your dream? He frowned like he was concentrating. You were talking to the lady across the street. She's nice. She gave me cookies before. But she didn't see me this time. My brain was spinning. He had just described the woman in the Colby Cardinal sweatshirt, the neighbor who'd said Tom Reed. And the thing about cookies? I hadn't been offered cookies, but it was exactly the kind of detail that could have been true in Tom's life. I got him a glass of water, tucked him back into bed, and told myself over and over, he's a kid. Kids make things up. This is a coincidence. This is just a coincidence. Except I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning was Sunday. Normally, we do pancakes and cartoons, but Eli was quiet at breakfast, staring at the syrup like it was telling him secrets. Finally, he said, I don't like thinking about the car. My stomach turned. What car? The red one. It came too fast. My legs hurt after. Then everything went away. I didn't push. My instinct was to comfort him, not interrogate him. But I wrote it down the second I had a moment alone. That afternoon, while Eli napped, I went full rabbit hole. Old Colby newspapers, accident reports, anything I could find. Most of it was behind paywalls or badly scanned, but I dug up one longer piece about Tom's funeral. There was a line in it that stuck out. Witnesses say the vehicle appeared to accelerate suddenly before the collision. Accelerate. That wasn't in the first article. That wasn't just an accident. It got under my skin. Over the next week, the weirdness intensified. Eli would randomly call me Margaret by mistake. Once, while we were driving, he pointed out a model of car, a 90s red Ford Taurus, and said flatly, "That's the one." When I asked, "The one what?" he just shook his head. 2 nights later, he woke up screaming. I ran in, heart pounding, and he was sitting up in bed, pointing at the window. "It's here," he said. I looked outside, nothing but our dark, quiet street. "What's here?" "The red car. It's waiting." I pulled him into my lap and rocked him until he calmed down, but I couldn't shake the image. Was he dreaming? Hallucinating? Or was there some thread between whatever happened in Colby and my son now? I decided to call Margaret again. I told her I'd been thinking about Tom's accident and had some questions. She was polite but cautious. I could tell the subject still hurt. When I asked if the driver had been speeding, she hesitated. "They said it was an accident," she said finally. "But Tom was right in the crosswalk. And some folks said they saw the car slow down, then speed up." I didn't want to think about it. The boy who was driving, his father was on the council. It was complicated. Something in her voice made my skin crawl. I thanked her and hung up, but now there was this sick possibility turning over in my head. What if Tom's death wasn't entirely innocent? That night, Eli came into the living room while I was folding laundry. He held one of my socks and said, "Rusty would have hidden this." Then, almost like he was switching subjects in his own head, he looked at me seriously. "If you see the red car, don't go to the store." I asked why. Because last time, I thought I could make it. But I couldn't. I didn't want to tell him I'd been to his store. I didn't want to tell him I'd stood in the exact spot where Tom died. But the more he spoke, the more it felt like this wasn't just him replaying a past life, it was him trying to warn me. Warn me about what, though? That I'd get hit? That history would repeat? That there was someone still, out there? The final straw came last Thursday. We were walking back from the park. It was dusk, the sky that deep blue where streetlights just start to flicker on. As we reached the corner by our street, Eli froze. "What is it?" I asked. He pointed. Down the block, under a street lamp, was a car idling. An older model, red. My first irrational thought was Ford Taurus, but I couldn't tell from that distance. Eli squeezed my hand hard. "That's it. That's the car." The engine revved once, softly, like whoever was inside was tapping the pedal. I told myself not to panic. I led Eli quickly toward home, my heart slamming in my chest. When we got to our driveway and I glanced back, the car was gone. That night, after Eli fell asleep, I sat in the dark with my laptop open and my notes in front of me. I thought about the acceleration in the article. The councilman's son. The possibility that someone, somewhere, remembered Tom Reed's death as more than a tragic accident. And now, somehow, my 5-year-old son was tangled in it. I haven't gone back to Colby since. Margaret called me once more to say it was nice meeting me, and that if I was ever in town again, should stop by. I don't know if I will. Part of me wants to ask her flat out if she believes in reincarnation. Part of me doesn't want to know her answer. Eli still mentions Tom sometimes. Less often now. Sometimes he mixes it into his play. His action figures will have Tom as a character who goes to the store and has a dog named Rusty. Sometimes he says things that stop me cold, like, "It's better this time. You're a nicer mom." I'm writing this because I don't know how much of it is in his head and how much of it isn't. And I don't know what to do if I ever see that red car again. TLDR, my son started talking about his other life as a man named Tom in a blue house with a red door. He gave me details I later confirmed in a real town hours away. I visited, found the house, met the widow, and verified almost everything, including that Tom died in a red car accident under strange circumstances. Now the red car has shown up near our home. If this post disappears, I guess you'll know the red car came back. And if you ever find yourself driving through Colby, maybe don't stop at the store on the corner of Jacobs Road. Just in case.